Welcome to HB Tuner's Ford Gen 2 Coyote Training Part 21. This training module is going to be an introduction into our variable cam control scheduling. So we're going to be looking at all the various modes that we have in our variable cam programming so we can understand the flow of logic as we move between the modes, and then that's going to set us up for moving through the next few tutorials breaking down how the variable cam control is going to actually function and program in order to go in and dial it in if we need to, if we choose to do so. Without further wait, let's jump in so we can check this out. Okay, so let's get started. We're going to be taking a look at working with our variable cam control feature in our Gen 2 Ford Coyote applications. This tutorial is going to serve as an introduction into the variable cam control. We're going to cover some of the basics, some of the fundamentals, and more importantly, we're going to understand and break down the different scheduling modes we have within the variable cam control. This is going to be just, again, the basics and introduction. We're going to be working in a couple different training modules here. Understanding the relationship of the variable cam control, the map points, how to program the variable cam control. We're going to be doing some demonstrations a little bit later. Again, couple training modules from now. We'll be on the chassis dyno and just go through how to program out and how to dial in some of the variable cam control. But we're going to be breaking this down in segments and sections. I just want to make sure that this topic is thoroughly gone through so you understand what is going on here, because the variable cam control calls on for spark timing, for our torque model, for our speed density, among many other things. These are different modes, or what's called map points, we can transition through, all based on the variable cam control's movement. So depending how our cam pairing, both the intake and exhaust cam as they're rotating and dialing in or out, overlap as we're driving, as that's happening, it's constantly shifting through all these different operation points called map points in our engine control module's operation, and we need to understand what's going on with that. It is a critical role in order to actually calibrate or tune your Gen 2 Coyote. Now, the Gen 2 Coyote is a bit different than the Gen 1 Coyote. So if you already had purchased the Gen 1 Coyote course or watched that and you're coming into this training tutorials and coming into this training course, things are just a little bit different. Actually, everything is backwards, so to speak, in terms of the variable cam control, the way that they're calling or looking at the numbers in the variable cam control. Everything is backwards, and we'll discuss that. But this is going to be something very important, so we're going to just dive into the fundamentals here in this training module. The first thing I want to do is take a look at a calibration file, have one open up here so we can start to dig in to find the variable cam control feature in our calibration file. I have a 2017 Mustang GT calibration file open here. This is a manual transmission calibration file. I have a manual transmission specifically because the variable cam control scheduling modes has an extra mode for the manual transmission vehicles called manual launch. It's so we can take off from a stop much easier. Automatic cars don't have the manual launch variable cam control modes scheduled or called on, so there's one last thing for an automatic car that you would have to worry about. But I have a manual transmission calibration file here so we can discuss that manual launch mode. Okay, so let's jump into our calibration file. I'm going to go up here into Engine, give us a second here, go into General, and then we're going to go to Airflow. And then under Airflow, we're going to move over here to our Variable Camshaft tab. Now, there's a lot of things that we could potentially program or work with in here. We're only going to be focusing on certain tables, so we don't need to panic. It does look very overwhelming. We are only going to be working with just a couple of the programming parameters in here, mostly the distance tables, sometimes our map points, and then sometimes our load thresholds that we call on. Also, optimal power will be something we focus on under full throttle tuning. The majority of the other settings and features in here we will not have to touch. So again, it really cuts down to maybe a quarter of the actual tables or parameters that we could program we actually have to worry about. Let me just do a quick overview here of what's going on within this particular window in terms of some of the values that we need to worry about, some of the things that are more important than others, and then we'll jump into talking about our VCT scheduling modes. That's really what I want to focus on here for the tutorial. That's the big takeaway from this basic introduction tutorial. So looking in our variable camshaft tab up at the top here under General, we have everything enabled and called on for the variable cam control for our Gen 2 Coyotes. We don't need to touch anything in our window right here. This is saying that the variable cam control is turned on. This VCT mode here, we have a couple different options. The TI-VCT means that it's a Gen 2 Ford Coyote. We're controlling both the intake and exhaust cams independently in terms of the rotation.
There's a P gain control and OP enrichment required. Again, that's all configured. We don't need to touch that. The minimum RPM, saying 400 RPMs to actually activate the variable cam control. We don't need to touch that. Now, here's something I want to point out. Under the intake cam, right here, we see intake valve opening. And then under the exhaust cam, we have exhaust valve closing. This point right here and this point right here, this specifies at the cam's neutral position, or where we haven't rotated the cam, where it's considered to be 0 degrees. This is the equivalent of the 0 degrees. So when we're talking about the rotation and movement of the cam, we have our intake and exhaust valve openings here, and I'm not going to get into this heavily into this video, but these are going to be spelling out what our intake valve opening and closing event's going to be, and this is going to be the cam movement, essentially where we want to rotate the cam to. We find we have something called
Thanks for checking out our teaser clip. If you want to see the rest of this video and more than 500 hours of current EFI training we have to offer, make sure you click right here. If you want to go and check out more teaser clips from this training course, click here, and you don't want to miss any of the videos we're going to be releasing on this channel, so make sure you subscribe and click here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.